As you may have heard recently, that yet another Windows 11 update has been a total failure, and we've had to pull this one immediately from our server.
Windows is so unusable, I can't even use it for what its intended purpose is, which is to allow me to compute.
The biggest problems they have is Windows updates. They seem to have no quality control and no testing on their updates, and they push them out and then they break. And this is what causes...
Microsoft pushed an update overnight while you slept. An update you had no meaningful way to refuse, and it broke your computer. Again, this is not a hypothetical scenario constructed to make a point. This is the documented, repeating, monthly reality of owning a Windows 11 machine in 2025. Over 20 confirmed critical update failures in a single year. Audio drivers destroyed. Webcams killed. Gaming performance cratered by 50% after routine patches. Systems locked in boot loops, requiring complete reinstalls to escape. Millions of machines affected simultaneously. Microsoft's response each time: push another update to fix the update that broke everything. The cycle so predictable that users began refusing to install updates entirely, which created a security vulnerability crisis of its own.
Our team not have access to their C drive because the last update ruined that? Or couldn't they calculate how many files it should have included because their calculator was broken like the last update ruined? Or couldn't they message anyone about it because Outlook was frozen like the last update ruined?
Microsoft engineered a situation where trusting them was dangerous and not trusting them was also dangerous. And they did it while telling users Windows 11 was getting better. Between October and December of 2025, Windows 11 market share dropped 5% in just 2 months. Windows 10, the operating system Microsoft officially declared dead, ended support for, and stopped issuing security patches for actually gained users during that same period. People chose to run an unsupported, unpatched, officially abandoned operating system rather than upgrade to the product Microsoft is actively developing and promoting.
Windows not updating is actually a feature, as updates tend to ruin everything.
When your customers prefer your discontinued product to your flagship product, you have not made a mistake. You have broken something fundamental. And what Microsoft broke with Windows 11 is not something that gets fixed with the next update. To understand how Microsoft arrived at this specific disaster, you have to trace the arc that started not with Windows 11, but with Windows 7. Because Windows 7 is the last version of Windows that was built around a clear and consistent philosophy. It booted quickly. It stayed out of your way. It ran your software without asking you to create accounts, accept cloud integrations, or consent to background data collection. It never tried to sell you something while you were trying to do your job. Developers loved it. Businesses built operational infrastructure around it. Regular users understood it intuitively without tutorials or setup guides. It was an operating system that treated the person using it as its primary customer and served that customer by getting out of the way. Microsoft killed it. January 2020, end of support, and hundreds of millions of users were pushed toward Windows 10, whether they wanted to move or not. Windows 10 was where the strategy began to change in ways that mattered. Telemetry ran silently in the background on every installation, collecting data about your activity, your searches, your hardware usage, and your behavior patterns, transmitting all of it back to Microsoft's servers continuously. Microsoft gave Windows 10 away free to Windows 7 users who upgraded during the transition period. That price point made sense once you understood the business model. The software was free because the user was not the customer. The user was the product. Microsoft was not charging you for the operating system because the behavioral data it collected and the cloud services it could push you toward were worth more than any license fee. Windows 10 was a warning. It established the template for what Windows would become. Most users accepted it, tolerated it, normalized it. The real catastrophe was still coming. Windows 11 arrived with fanfare and promises. A cleaner interface, better performance, a modern foundation for the next era of computing. What it actually delivered in practice was a hardware wall that locked out hundreds of millions of perfectly functional computers. The TPM2 requirement: machines 3, 4, 5 years old machines running every task their owners needed without issues, machines that had nothing physically wrong with them, were officially declared incompatible. Not because they lacked the processing power to run the software, because they lacked a specific security chip that Microsoft decided was mandatory for reasons that served hardware refresh cycle economics as much as any genuine security justification. People who had bought quality machines a few years earlier were being told their hardware was obsolete by a software decision. Buy new equipment or find another way. That ultimatum planted something in millions of users that Microsoft did not intend to plant: genuine, serious curiosity about whether Windows was actually necessary at all. The users who upgraded to Windows 11 on compatible hardware quickly discovered what the promises about cleaner interfaces and better performance looked like in practice. The setup experience alone alienated people before they reached the desktop. Sign in with a Microsoft account required, with workarounds being systematically patched out with each update. Connect to the internet during installation mandatory. Download mandatory updates before the setup completes, not optional. Accept OneDrive integration. Dismiss Copilot prompts. Decline Microsoft 365 subscription recommendations. Navigate privacy setting screens designed to make opting out feel complicated and time-consuming. One technology reviewer documented spending 45 minutes getting through the Windows 11 initial setup, 45 minutes of account prompts, mandatory downloads, and feature consent screens before reaching a desktop that was supposed to represent the future of personal computing. The setup process alone told users everything they needed to know about whose interests the operating system was designed to serve. The update failures are where Windows 11's dysfunction became impossible to dismiss or rationalize. These were not the occasional bugs that any complex software platform produces during development. These were systematic, repeated, large-scale failures that followed a predictable pattern. Microsoft pushes an update. Millions of machines break in specific, documented ways. Microsoft pulls the update. Microsoft pushes a fix for the update that broke things. The fix breaks something else. Microsoft pushes another update. Repeat. Audio drivers breaking after patches and requiring manual reinstallation. Webcams going completely dead on machines where they had functioned perfectly before the update. Gaming frame rates dropping 50% overnight. The October 2025 update that cut NVIDIA performance in half, forcing NVIDIA to release an emergency driver just to undo the damage a Windows patch had caused. Boot loops requiring full system reinstalls to escape. File systems becoming inaccessible after patches that were supposed to deliver security improvements. The internal dynamics driving this pattern have been described by former Microsoft employees who went public with accounts of how decisions get made inside the Windows division. Two groups with fundamentally conflicting priorities. Teams working to stabilize Windows 11, fixing broken drivers, resolving boot loop causes, addressing the compatibility failures accumulating with each update cycle. And teams whose mandate is integrating AI features throughout the operating system, embedding Copilot into every application regardless of whether it makes sense, demonstrating AI adoption metrics to justify the tens of billions Microsoft has invested. These groups are not coordinating. They are competing for resources and organizational priority. And the AI team is winning consistently because Satya Nadella has committed over $25 billion to AI infrastructure and open AI investment, and he needs something visible to show investors that the bet is paying off. Windows is the most visible surface Microsoft controls. So instead of fixing broken audio drivers, Microsoft built Copilot into Notepad. Instead of resolving the boot loop problem, they added AI suggestions to the Photos app. Applications that existed for decades performing a single function reliably suddenly bloated with machine learning features that consume memory and processing power while delivering value that most users cannot identify. Copilot is the clearest illustration of what happens when investor narrative overrides engineering reality. Microsoft positioned it as an intelligent assistant living inside Windows, capable of helping users work smarter, complete tasks faster, and navigate their computing environment more efficiently. The experience users actually encountered was a resource-heavy feature occupying system memory and CPU cycles while producing responses so generic and unreliable that technology forums filled with detailed complaints from users had given it genuine chances. People documented Copilot failing to complete tasks that a basic web search would resolve in seconds, producing hallucinated information presented confidently, failing to understand context that any competent human assistant would grasp immediately. Microsoft had embedded this across the entire operating system in the taskbar, the Start menu, Notepad, File Explorer, and beyond, and it could not deliver the capabilities it was marketed on. Only 3% of Microsoft's own Office 365 users adopted Copilot when given the choice. After billions of dollars of investment and aggressive embedding throughout every Microsoft product, 3% voluntary adoption among existing paying customers, the gap between the investor narrative and user reality could not have been more precisely quantified. When the backlash reached a level Microsoft could no longer manage through communication strategy, they quietly paused some of the most aggressive forced rollouts, issued statements about being more thoughtful about where Copilot appeared, published blog posts about renewed commitment to Windows quality, and then pushed another update that had to be pulled immediately because it prevented clean installation, producing errors about missing update files. The pattern of promises followed immediately by contradicting actions has become so consistent that users have stopped treating Microsoft's communications about Windows quality as meaningful information. Recall represents the moment Windows 11 crossed from frustrating to genuinely alarming for a significant portion of its user base. Microsoft built a feature that takes a screenshot of everything on your screen every few seconds and stores those screenshots in a searchable archive. Every document you opened, every website you visited, every private message you typed, every image you viewed, every form you filled in, every search you conducted, captured continuously, indexed, made searchable through an AI interface. Microsoft's public framing was that this would help you find things you had done previously, a searchable memory of your computing history. Security researchers examined the implementation within days of the announcement and found that the initial version stored all of this captured data in plain, unencrypted text files. Any malware reaching the machine, any person with physical access, any application running with sufficient permissions, all could read a complete, visually indexed record of everything the user had ever done on that computer. Passwords captured from banking sessions, credit card numbers photographed during online purchases, private communications screenshotted and stored in a searchable database. The UK's Information Commissioner's Office opened a formal investigation. Privacy advocates across Europe and North America raised coordinated alarms. Third-party developers built tools specifically designed to block a feature that came bundled with the operating system users had paid for. Microsoft delayed the rollout, redesigned the data storage with encryption, made it opt-in rather than default, and then quietly began pushing it out again to Copilot Plus machines once the immediate noise subsided. The feature was never killed. It was adjusted, repackaged, and resumed. That sequencing the initial design without adequate privacy protection, the reactive adjustments under public pressure, and the continued deployment after the controversy faded is the pattern that destroyed whatever residual trust Microsoft had with privacy-conscious users. You cannot design a surveillance feature, deploy it, face a backlash severe enough to trigger government investigations, make cosmetic adjustments, and then continue deploying it while expecting users to believe you take their privacy seriously. The actions communicate the priority. And the priority was never user privacy. The corporate culture driving these product decisions has been described from inside by former employees in terms that make the update failures and privacy missteps feel less like accidents and more like predictable outputs of a broken internal environment. Management structures that reward political positioning and AI investment narrative delivery over engineering quality and user trust. Teams competing for resources based on which group's work generates better investor story material rather than which work most improves the product. The decline of the Halo franchise under identical internal dynamics, creative conflicts, leadership instability, fan abandonment, running in parallel with Windows deterioration, reflecting the same organizational pathology expressing itself across different product lines. When the incentive structure rewards AI feature announcements over stable update pipelines, the operating system reflects that incentive structure with mathematical consistency. Broken updates are not quality control failures in an organization that genuinely prioritizes quality control. They are the predictable output of an organization that has deprioritized quality control in favor of feature velocity and AI narrative delivery. The commercial strategy underneath all of this has become impossible to miss for users. Paying attention. Microsoft's claim that Windows 11 is free is accurate in the narrow sense that there is no standalone purchase price. In every meaningful sense beyond the initial installation cost, Windows 11 is an aggressive subscription funnel. The moment you complete setup, the operating system begins working to convert you into a recurring revenue stream. Microsoft 365 subscription prompts appear across the interface. OneDrive storage upgrade recommendations surface constantly. The Start menu serves promoted content alongside your actual applications. The search function, once a reliable tool for finding files and applications on your own machine, now delivers AI-generated suggestions, news articles, and sponsored results before showing you what you were looking for. Outlook pushes advertisements into your inbox. The operating system you paid for through the purchase price of the hardware, it came on functions as a commercial platform, directing your attention and behavior toward Microsoft's subscription revenue streams. Your desktop is not a productivity workspace you control. It is a monetization surface that Microsoft manages for its own financial benefit, using your hardware and your attention as the resources being consumed. The market is responding to all of this with a clarity that Microsoft's quarterly earnings calls are designed to obscure. Linux has crossed 5% of US desktop market share for the first time in recorded history. The Stack Overflow Developer Survey from 2025 shows 27.8% of developers now use Ubuntu as their primary operating system. Developers are not a demographic whose behavior you can dismiss as a niche signal. They are the people who build the software ecosystems that shape technology adoption across entire industries. When developers move in a direction, the ecosystem eventually follows them. The users fleeing Windows after the Windows 10 end-of-life deadline are not predominantly migrating to Windows 11. Many are going directly to Linux distributions like Ubuntu and Fedora, discovering that modern Linux handles installation straightforwardly, runs professional software reliably, performs measurably better on identical hardware, and does none of the things that drove them away from Windows. No surveillance features running by default. No forced account creation. No update cycles that break things predictably. No AI features embedded in applications that existed perfectly without them. No advertising in the operating system they installed on hardware they own. They are discovering that the friction they normalized as an unavoidable part of computing was specific to Windows rather than inherent to the experience of using a computer. And that discovery, once made, is not reversed by a better Microsoft update. Germany banned Microsoft Office formats from all government documents nationwide. Germany's Schleswig-Holstein migrated 30,000 government employees off Windows entirely. France, Denmark, and multiple other European governments have made equivalent moves or announced active migration plans. Their stated reasons are consistent across all of them. Privacy concerns that Windows 11's architecture makes impossible to fully resolve. Security vulnerabilities introduced by the very update mechanism supposed to deliver protection. Costs that compound as Microsoft's licensing fees increase and the total support burden of managing Windows at institutional scale accumulates. And a complete loss of confidence in Microsoft's ability to deliver stable, trustworthy software on any predictable timeline. When public institutions responsible for citizen data, national security information, and critical infrastructure determine they cannot trust Windows, that decision is not made lightly and is not reversed because Microsoft promises to do better. It is made after years of evidence accumulation and reversed almost never. Every broken update is not a quality control failure in isolation. Every Copilot feature pushed into an application that worked perfectly without it is not a product misjudgment made in good faith. Every recall screenshot taken of your screen, every OneDrive prompt redirecting your files, every advertisement surfaced in the start menu of a paid operating system. These are not accidents or oversights or the inevitable rough edges of complex software development. They are the consistent output of a deliberate commercial strategy that treats Windows users as a monetization opportunity rather than a customer base to be served. The operating system exists to deliver users into Microsoft's subscription ecosystem, to collect behavioral data that feeds AI training and advertising targeting, and to push hardware refresh cycles that benefit Microsoft's OEM partners and Surface product line. The user experience is not the product. The user is the product. The experience is whatever level of quality Microsoft judges sufficient to prevent defection while maximizing extraction. For millions of people, that judgment is now visibly wrong. The defections are documented in the market share data. They are visible in the Linux download numbers, the Zorin OS million downloads in a month statistics, the government migration announcements, the enterprise pilot programs, the developer survey results. The users who have left are not coming back. Not because Linux is perfect, not because the alternatives have no learning curve or no rough edges, but because the threshold was finally crossed where the friction of switching was less painful than the friction of staying. When that threshold tips, when using what you have becomes worse than learning something new, the migration becomes self-sustaining. Every person who switches and finds the experience better tells people they know. Every positive Linux review that appears beside a Windows 11 complaint thread shifts the perception of how difficult and how rewarding the switch actually is. Microsoft built Windows 11 to serve Microsoft's commercial interests. The broken updates, the surveillance features, the advertising, the forced cloud integration, none of it is accidental. All of it serves the same strategy. And millions of people, having finally understood what that strategy is and what it costs them in performance, privacy, and control, are making a decision that would have seemed unthinkable 5 years ago. They are choosing to pay nothing, learn something new, and own their machines again, and they are not looking back.